Suddenly, out in the winter woods near the inn, a forgotten band of heathen Vikings had poor Sir Gelaine surrounded on all sides. Gillan, having survived the Great War, and being now king of all Vikings' home, could not seem to sit still on his throne. He had, like his father, Prince Valor, come to Arthur's aid as a knight of the Round Table. He was now scouring the land on a personal quest. He was the second last knight, having survived.
I shall certainly not be taken without a fight to the death, but if you put down your weapons, I shall be yours for the taking, a king for your exhibition.
And then he threw his sword to the ground. As their weapons hit the ground in a clatter, Gelaine, with the speed of the wind, was soon amount his horse and jumping well over their bewildered heads towards the inn which beckoned to him in the distance. Sir Gelaine arrived at the inn just a shade ahead of his pursuers and jumped the back fence of the inn, leaving the garden in much disarray and the residents staring in disbelief. Gelaine then bounded through the dining hall, surprising even more guests. He then climbed the wall with one step to reach the rusted weapons adorning the wall of the great hall. The sword still sung, and some of the Saxon horde were down by the time Percival got down and to the front door through the mass confusion. 3 more then fell from the knifely hand of Alexis, for they had ignored the woman. Underestimation cost them their lives. Perceval's old skills remained, and the bloody work was done when Perceval's darts found the unfeeling hearts of the last hasty men. The mess was soon cleaned up, and the less said about this, the better. The wounded were not finished off, but sent out to tell of the resurgence of the swinging sword, and as proof of Gelaine's and Perceval's charity.
Percival, you live.
Yes, Sir Gelaine, but I'm afraid that we are the last.
Ern is gone too, I fear, and many others. I had a dream, Perceval. I dreamt that I looked to the sky and saw that the stars were where they should not be. Cassiopeia was skewed out of shape. I recognized Vega, but it was in the wrong constellation. And there was no trace of Orion. That's when it struck me. The night sky was that which would be viewed from Orion itself. When I awoke and got to Britain, I seemed to know the direction to take at every fork, as if guided by some ghostly presence. I rode so fast that at many points I outstripped my guards.
Sir Gelaine's dream was more than just a vision. It was a guiding force that led him through the treacherous paths of Britain. They were soon joined by the Flaxen Saxon, as well as by some of Gelaine's men, which had finally caught up to him, for none of them had king's horses. They were joined by 6 other minor kings as well.
Gelaine, king of Scandia, has come to us this night on a quest just completed and brings us many tales of adventure from across the sea. Gelaine, shall we now call you king?
The gathering of kings was a momentous occasion, filled with anticipation and respect for Sir Gelaine's journey. Gelaine began to tell of a few recent adventures, leaving the older ones for other days.
My friends, we are all Britons, though I see that Alexis is French, Perceval is Irish, and myself a Viking. But we are all the stock of future Britain, and it seems to be our destiny to meet here to record some of our dark history, for this is a special time. We have now even lost track of the events during the 200 years preceding our births. These will forever be dark times, not only to us, but to all who come after. But never again shall this happen. Never again shall any source of inspiration be lost.
Still, some of the tales were lost over the years, added to and subtracted from. But these snatches remained, and this much we know. Gelaine told of how he regained the throne of his grandfather and of the fragile peace that held Scandia together after the death of Elida and Valor, his mother and father, and
I, too, like my father, Sir Lancelot du Lac, was raised by the Lady of the Lake. Of course, it was not actually a lake, but the apparition was well appreciated as being a lake by all. This upbringing allowed Guinevere, my mother, to live a free life with no shame of my birth. and we were to meet often during those early years of my life, a life which is yet young.
All then continued to tell short stories which were by no means near complete, but would serve as reference points during the winter of tales. Percival told of some small tales, sometimes relapsing into those of his youth.
A youth of admiration for knights was I, and I did strive to become one and therefore set out in that manner. He then retold the events of the Grail Castle and of the Grail's assumption to heaven, and how he was somewhat relieved of his life of sainthood and now allowed to live life as a normal man, if only this transition of his enhancement could be survived. And in my hour of strife, I let the love of a woman, pure and true, strengthen my hand, and she now sits before you.
Guinevere and Alexis looked at each other knowingly. The old man told some tales, previously untold, of how Merlin built Stonehenge, of how the stones were felt to be weightless by the men as they carried them to their directed places. After the morning dawned upon them, they slept for a day and a night while the first snow fell on the bodies of the vanquished heathen. When the full and gleaming December moon shone on the snow, it made for the season's brightest night, brighter than the most dismal day. No one saw this cold Yule moon, however, but one Sir Arthur, once king, and may he ever watch over us as we sleep. And to you all, dear readers, may you have a good night.